laptops.
Oh yeah. This is underpowered and slow and cramped.
9 hours. Yeah, but you're up for 35 or something when you get home. So
There we go.
it's
Yeah.
usually that way.
So, let's see, I sent out a info piece last week about this guy here that Jeff mentioned to us. Fine art grunge composition. I love that name because really that's kind of what we're doing here is we're de-emphasizing the details and kind of grunging up our pictures. And I found a coupon so that this is actually a pretty good bargain. I think it was 127 or something.
I had that expired.
Really?
Yeah,
You must have.
January 1st of this year.
Did you try it? I tried it and got it.
Oh, did you get it?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, wow.
So, regardless of what it says, anyhow, it may have expired after I used it. Maybe they just figured it out. But try it if you're interested in this.
No, I'm part of it, so I know. But I did look at it.
So it's a course then, or something?
It is a course.
It's a multi-video course. I kind of went through the first section of courses, and they kind of covers what he's trying to do, how he's trying to accomplish it. But he gets into things like, okay, how do you actually set yourself up to be successful with these pictures by taking the pictures that you want to work with, which is different from going through your library and finding pictures that may have matched what you wanted, which is pretty much what I've done, is gone through my last 10 years worth of pictures and I pick them out as I want to use them. But he's got a lot of good points in here. Anyhow, it's interesting, it's good, for 100 and some bucks, it's a pretty good price.
I've been on that for about 1.5 years.
Yeah.
And what I find excellent is there's a reference section with, it looks like thousands of dollars worth of reference material. So he's got textures and frames and other videos, instructions and whatnot. He's constantly feeding that area. So the last 1.5 years, it's doubled in size. The membership is lifetime. So this is a site. He's got about 6,000 people signed up, and he's constantly feeding it. So it keeps changing constantly.
Yeah.
It's quite to me. It's been quite valuable. It was well worth the money, and I think I paid $87 for it.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's if you want to do this kind of stuff, basically this class is an introduction. Tough to learn a lot, just from an 1.5 hours worth of talk.
And he publishes a magazine.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, terrific.
What's his name?
Sebastian Michaels.
It's
Michaels.
it's fineartgrunge.com is the website. If you go to the class website, you'll see right here Sebastian Michaels, and I sent out an email with the coupon in it. So if you dig through your deleted stuff, you'll find it. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best $100+ you can spend.
He's good.
He's very good.
He explains things very well.
Yeah, and you can go back over it, So that's that. So today, what I wanted to do was go through a couple of add-ons, because we've talked about Lightroom Photoshop, and we've talked about using the tools within Photoshop to do masking and compositing and overlays and blending and those kind of things. But there are, as we painfully worked through, especially last week, some of the masking issues. Photoshop does pretty good masking, but you need to have skill, right? And the substitute for skill, it turns out, is software. So there's a couple of pieces of software that are really helpful in that, and I want to go through a couple of those. And then there's also some other applications that help us with the actual process of doing the overlays and the blends and those kind of things. And I'm all for taking the time and doing the detail work. If you take a look at this fellow that we just talked about, the Photoshop grunge, or the grunge photography, one of the things that he goes through is using different tools for different sections of the image. All right, and that goes back to what I said a while ago about heavy-handed editing. Okay, the filters that you use on your phone, okay, you take a picture and you go to the editor and you hit, oh yeah, I like that one. It's kind of black and white, but kind of, that's heavy-handed editing. That's taking one filter and applying it to the entire image and calling it done. Sometimes you get some pretty good results that way, sometimes interesting, but it's not what I would call art. It's not thoughtful. It's, take this, apply it, over with. So the real art is in taking the individual image and the composites that you want to put with it and applying the effects that you decide work best to the areas that you want, and rather than just doing a single overlay. And that's not to say that you can't get some good effects, but why do art canvases get thousands of dollars, right, at the art market, and photographs get maybe hundreds? Why is that? I think it's that. I think it's, okay, you take a picture, it's a great picture, but number one, you can reproduce it, right, and everybody can have the same one, and it's the amount of effort put into it is significantly less than somebody who, took a paintbrush and drew. Not that there isn't certain skill in putting together the image and in making the composition properly and those kind of things, but it's a different level. So, anyhow, my philosophy on art, whatever that matters. Okay, so On1 Effects is probably the first one I want to talk about. Actually, On1 has a few products. The On1 Photo 10 is their suite, and it includes a whole lot of things. The only one we'll probably talk about today is the built-in masking on effects. But just to kind of take a look at what it is that they have. It's a layer application. It allows you to do layers natively. So when you bring a photograph into there, it is a layer. You can then apply masks, transitions. You can bring in other images and overlay them. And it really is, it's a nice, I believe it's easier than Photoshop. I'm not sure where the capabilities cross over. I prefer Photoshop, but I think that's probably personal. And you can use it as a standalone or as a plugin for Photoshop or for Lightroom, and Lightroom. So let's just do that. Here, let's take one of the images that I kind of struggled with last week. What was it? I think it was that tree, right? Yeah, let's do that. Let's take this. That's an edited one. If I can find the original. There we go. All right, so that one right there. So the job here is to get the background out and cut the tree out. And go to develop. I'm going to reset this and bring it back to its original. Okay, so that's the original unedited JPEG. Well, even though it says edited, but it is the edited JPEG. So we know that we can take this into Photoshop, but I probably want to do some prep work ahead of time and increase the contrast and make a separation so that Photoshop can find the edges of the tree a little bit more easily. But let's go in and we'll just take this into On1 Photo 10, and we'll just take just a copy of it without adjustments. I don't care about you. So this is the main interface for for on one. Again, it looks a lot like the other applications that we work with. Lightroom in particular, because of this over here. Come on. And then a browser over on this side, and we can just collapse that, I think.
I signed up for their ongoing annual membership class thing.
Right, with Koslowski.
It's very hard to keep up with. They throw so much at you a few months behind.
Yeah.
It was very cheap.
Yeah.
So if I don't catch up, oh well.
Right. And I think that I don't know if they still do, but they had a deal where if you buy this package, you get a year's worth of that training.
Matt Koslowski or
Yeah, go ahead and say that a couple times. Okay. So over here are the tools. Again, it's, like Photoshop. On the left-hand side, we've got our tools. And I don't know why this still doesn't close up. But the one we want to use are this section right here. So this one here is just a masking brush, just paint over stuff. This one is the quick mask, and that's the one we want to look at. So I'm going to take this quick mask, and we've got this little thing here. And what we're going to do here, remember in Photoshop we went through and we did the color range picker, so we picked the different, the dropper, right. With this, they've consolidated it into a brush. So if I just kind of brush over, it'll collect all the colors that are under that brush, and it'll make its best guess as to what I want to get rid of. Now, one of the things about this is that with Photoshop, you got all kinds of tools for refine edge and for changing, what gets seen and what doesn't get seen. With this, it doesn't seem to have those. It has this up here in the gear, which really just pressure adjust if you have the Wacom. So I'm not sure where the rest of their tools are, but apparently they're not here. So I'm just going to go in here and try and do a little bit more of this. All right. Then we'll use this one right here, this tool, the Refine brush. This is similar, I believe, to the Refine Edge tool in Photoshop. And now if we go up to this, we have an additional control, color decontamination, which generally you want to turn on. I'm going to increase the size of this, and I'm just going to paint through here. We'll see what kind of results we get. Try just that much first. And they've changed this tool several times, this on-one masking tool. Used to be that you had multiple tools to select different colors. And I think they think that they've been able to get away without doing that. We'll see. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of detail in there, so hopefully that's a good sign.
Which part of the suite is this?
This is the main part. This is the Photoshop, the Photo 10 layers, it's called. Yeah. All right, so let's try some more of this here.
Does it help if you sweep over all that blue stuff? Or not necessary, hopefully?
I was trying to, reduce the CPU overhead here by selecting a part of it. In my experience, it definitely goes faster on a desktop. This is an i5 CPU, so it's not, and it's, I don't know, 3 years old maybe, 4 years old. So not tremendously fast. As we go through this, we're waiting for this. Over here, we've got our layers. So you can actually add layers to this. And one of the things one of the reasons this is over here, the pictures on the side, is you can select these pictures and apply them as layers. So whereas before we were using either Lightroom or Bridge for Photoshop to select pictures, to select image files, this is integrated into one. So we've got the image that we're working on here, the main image, and then we've got our catalog over here. Now, it's not the same kind of catalog as Lightroom. It doesn't have all the finding features and that kind of thing. All right, well, we did a little bit better. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make sure that my minus sign is on the color that I want to get rid of. We'll try it again.
So far, it hasn't really shown that it was back then.
Hasn't been much better, has it? No.
Now, when you sweep that last time, or any of the times you swept over, how does it know that you want the blue and not the tree colors?
What I just said was I had the minus sign on the blue, so you want to identify the color that you want to get rid of.
Okay. So before you swept, you selected some blue and put them on.
Just start there and then drag around.
Where did you do that at the top?
When this is done here, I'm sure we're going to need to do it again. I'll show you.
You know, that's an awfully difficult image if you try to do that even with the photo. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, getting better. Okay.
Why is it that it does it so gradually? Why doesn't it take all of the blue out all at once?
I don't know. I don't know. It should. All right, so if you can see this, right, see the minus sign right in the middle of the circle?
Oh, okay.
You see that? So I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it right on this little blue area here. And let's just see how much we can get this time around.
So it only selects one shade,
Right, it's gonna take the
I don't,
darker.
reasonably speaking.
yeah, you know, in Photoshop you have the select color and you have a range adjustment, so you can say, okay, I want, you know, more or less range, and so you got better control. So with software that you control by your knowledge and by the tools in it, you've got more control and you should be able to do a better job. This is the other way. They've taken away the controls and they're saying, okay, we got this. Well, they don't got it, but it does a pretty good job. But what we're going to do here is we'll see that even without that blue, without all of the blue gone, we can still use this because, again, the images that we're trying to produce with this are marginal, right? Yeah, we're gonna change it, and we still have blending modes, and we still have those kind of things that can drop those colors out. You can see that the more I select, the longer it takes. I mean, I took a pretty big chunk that time.
So Scott, with this, you didn't increase the contrast like you did with photo.
Did not. That's correct. All right, so I'm just going to, yeah, I mean, this is what it is, right? You know, it's what it is. Right, and I'm not sure that we'll get a whole lot better, frankly. But you can see over here we've got the mask, and we've got the original image, and up here is the result. All right, so we'll finish this. We'll take it back into Lightroom. Okay, that did a pretty good job down there. All right.
In Photoshop with the quick select tool, you never could have done this, right?
Oh, I'm just thinking about that. Yikes.
Could not have done what?
I mean, you know, select this tree in Photoshop with a quick select.
Oh, quick select, absolutely not. But maybe color range, you know.
Right.
I mean, that's really what this is doing, is a color range. So, yes. All right, so now it's creating a composite. Now what we get from this is what it just says there. We get a composite JPEG. So different from Photoshop, which is we got the original image with the layer mask, right? As a whatever we want, a TIFF, a PSD, or a JPEG. In this case, we just got a JPEG. And there it is. So that's the untitled JPEG. Actually looks not too bad, right? So what I'm going to go for here is this right here. So one of the things I like about this is the lighting in the tree, and I think this is the same tree, and the cloud background. So this is really just a 2 or 3 image composite. So we'll take this one here, and I'm going to use, take this one, and let's try something with a kind of a similar color, and we'll edit these in Photoshop. So we lost the layer mask in that image that we cut out, which is probably overall not a good thing, right? But again, we didn't have all that much control over that process. So if you want more control, you have to know more about the software that you want to use in order to get the results rather than let some other application do it for you. And then when we get through this one here, we're going to try to create a similar image using the Topaz, the new Topaz application, which is actually pretty neat. But again, has its limitations.
Is it a brand new one?
It's the Topaz filter, I think. Topaz filters. Let's see. I do have it on here. Topaz texture effects.
Oh,
It's it's fairly new. Pardon?
Topaz what?
Texture effects.
All right, if you use, in the on-one, if you use it as a plug-in, you wouldn't get a layer?
Still would not give you a layer.
Really?
So yeah, so we'll jump ahead a little bit. Here's one of the things that I don't like about On1 and Topaz is that you lack control. You're allowing the software to do it for you. On1, we just saw, gave us a JPEG output with no layers. Okay, maybe that's good, maybe it's not. Depends on your purpose. Topaz texture effects does the same thing. We will be able to take an image into Topaz and create, they have a whole bunch of presets, which are pretty good, and you have a tremendous amount of flexibility in adjusting them, but when you get out of it, what you have is a single layer composite. You can't go back. You cannot go back and edit, so for whatever that's worth. All right, so here's our tree, and let's take this guy here and see if we can layer that in. So I'm just going to drag this up. We already know this move, right? And take it up to here and then drop it in, and free transform, Control T, and drag it out here. And commit.
Jupiter or something?
It could be little moons on there.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was a 56 Chevy.
I had one of those.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take this, unlock the background, and I'm actually going to duplicate the background here just because that's always a good thing to do, and drag this layer below. Okay, so now we have our initial layer, and what do we notice here? If I had done this in Photoshop, what would have happened?
Yeah, be transparent.
Right, I would have had transparency on that image. Okay? And I don't. So, gee, that's not fun. But we can change the blend mode until we start to get, somewhere close to what we want. Right? And what I was trying to get here was just the portion of that tree, so I'm going
How
to...
did the blend mode suddenly show up the tree?
The blend mode, okay, so what we're looking at here is we've got this layer, right, the tree layer,
Yeah.
and instead of a transparent background, we've got a white background. Because JPEGs don't have a transparency component. They can't be transparent. So if I turn on this,
Oh, you didn't turn it on, okay.
all right, now, and what I did was I've changed the blend mode. I could also, change this, the opacity, or I can do a blend if. Remember this one? All right, so we can Alt, Option, click and drag this and change the white black that gets turned into transparency. That one doesn't seem to work as well. And this is all an experiment, right? So here's the blend modes. Again, you can access blend modes within the layer styles. So we'll just kind of pick one that looks kind of like what we want. Kind of like that. And what I was trying to go for here was a section of this tree. So I'm going to go to the tree here and free transform it again. And this time I'm going to just blow it up. Oh, wrong one.
So is it just our eyes, those little remnants of little blueness in the tree seem to be...
They are definitely there. They're
You
definitely
see
there.
them on your screen? Okay.
Yep. Yep. See them there?
They're not offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
see them here.
I got the same kind of stuff over here that I put in intentionally. Right? So let's drag this out. Yeah, kind of like that. And so here's the little bit of white glow that I wanted. I'm not sure that we'll be able to pull that out, but we can put a layer style or a layer control on it. Right, just contrast maybe. All right, so we want to lock that to the tree. A nice contrast in there. So that one, I use this to link it specifically just to that layer. Without that, I apply this change to everything below the stack. And I'd like to get rid of this stuff down here. So I'm going to go down to the tree layer, put on a mask, and that's a white mask. And we want to pick a black brush here.
So Scott,
Yes.
can you use a different tool than a brush on a mask?
Yes.
Can I draw a square
Um,
with a rectangular tool?
You should be able to, because a layer mask is an image, right? It is a grayscale image. So with a marquee or just with a brush, pen. Yeah, I don't know what you do with it, but now you could, if that's selected.
I mean, can I draw a square and fill it with black to create just a simple window in the mask?
You should be able to do that. Let's see if we can do that.
I tried that, and as soon as I hit the rectangle tool,
All right, so let's see, we're on this layer here. And paint bucket. Nope. All right, so it gave me the whole area. I did not, okay. The difference is, I believe, that you need to turn this into a selection. Okay, once it's selection.
How do you do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to get to here, I think. All right, so let's just say we want a square here.
Yeah, the simplest.
Right, there's a selection, right? And so that is selected, I think, by default, the fact that I have that. So let's just try our paint bucket tool. Okay, so it is. You see that right there?
Okay.
So it is. Now, why is that not showing up? Oh, because it's, right? So there's my clear space. Yeah, I should, well, I'm painting over white with black, so if I shift it around, and I don't have anything over here to paint over, it's clear. So I think the answer to your question is yes, you can paint in it. I mean, it is a grayscale image.
And then, like, suppose you wanted to use it as a book cover, you could put printing in there, put a title in there.
You don't need that actually to do typing. Okay, so all right, so I'll get to that. Here's what happened. Okay, let's just go back here.
So that rectangle is on the
Right.
layer.
So on the mask, the layer mask has the rectangle. Let's just do this again. So we'll go up here, we'll create a selection right there. And that was on the layer mask.
On the mask, okay.
Now I go over to the image and I can fill it. Okay? So since I made the selection on the layer mask, I go over to the image, which is where I want actually to create. No. But well, anyhow, that's the answer to that. Okay.
Okay, just need to keep exploring.
And there's a couple of tutorials I went through that if you want to paint in detail selection, you can do that with a marquee tool like this or with any of the selection tools, right?
If I'm doing something dimensionally correct, I would use the rectangle tool with the grid on,
right,
and I could measure on the grid if I wanted to create a rectangle or not.
right.
But when I try that again, as soon as I hit the rectangle tool, it created a new layer. Just like when you hit the type tool, it creates a new layer.
You need to put a mask on it. So you need to be working on the mask,
Correct.
right?
That's the way I see it.
Right, because, I mean, that's what I did here, and it
Instead of using a brush, which is normal, you hit the brush and you paint on the mask,
right,
and you see the effect, or you delete the effect. I just wanted to use a rectangle or a shape.
right. Does that answer the question?
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
You should be able to demonstrate the same thing with your text tool on that.
Oh, yeah, text is actually, but you're right, it does create,
It creates its own layer.
yep.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm on the layer, I'm on the layer mask. If I go into here, text tool, yep, there's a layer, right? So it did create a new layer.
Yeah.
Right, so there's my text. Now it's linked to this, but yeah, I mean, it is a different layer, and I think that's just because, you know, text can get so complex, right? I mean, you know, and move it around, whatever. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff to it. So yes, you can create text on the image, and it is a new layer, which actually is a good thing.
What if you wanted the text inside the black rectangle?
You do that in the text area, because you can do the fill in the background.
Right, exactly. So yeah, we would just go into here and go to the,
Yeah.
you know, the text attributes.
Right.
on this,
Yeah.
right?
You put the text up without the box.
That's what we just tried to do, but you probably wouldn't do it exactly that way. So we could turn this off. That didn't do it, huh?
Change box to white.
Change the box to white. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't create a box and then put the text over it. I would just create the text and use the controls within the text tool to modify the background, the size, the weight, the color of the text, all those things. Because it's pretty robust. I mean, you just, like all these things, you have to figure out how to use them. Okay, let's see if we can back out of this. Okay. All right, so we've changed some brightness on here that's linked to this. We have one more background here. Let's just bring that up into here and drop it in. And I'm going to hit, so this is bigger than my window, right? So I'm going to hit Control 0 to bring it up. Control T, Control 0. Okay. So now I can see the entire size of this. So I Control T for transform, Control 0 to let me see the entire window. And I can bring this over here and decide, do I want it this way? Do I want it horizontal? And since I didn't fill the background here for this, I don't have, okay, I'm going to apply that and come down and bring it down below the layer. Okay, so now it's tree, so I've got a brightness control here for the tree. I've got my tree, I've got my grungy layer, and I've got my color, my main color layer. Right now you can't see the color layer here, right, because the grunge layer is at full opacity and normal blend mode. So let's start messing with the blend mode until we get something that bring the opacity down. So now hit the hand tool over here to bring it back to full. All right. So what do we take from this? We did a mask selection of this using the On1 tool. It did an okay job. But for these purposes, it turns out that it doesn't matter because you can't really tell which of these splotchy things was from that defect or from the defects that I added to the picture. We added really two different layers to it and a control. I'm not particularly happy with that size of that tree, so I'm going to okay, I like that better. All right.
Looks like the end of the world.
Yeah. The
You need a raven.
a what, a raven?
You need a raven in this.
Well, they never.
You know, we can do that.
Text.
I've got a couple minutes here, so let's go back here. We do have birds. We don't really have ravens, but we do have those seagulls, right? And I don't think you can really tell the difference. So, see if we can find them here quick. Winged beast, yeah. I think I'm bogging this thing down. Let me turn off.
So bird brushes yesterday for free
Really?
on the internet. Yeah.
Brush in your birds, huh?
24 with flocks of birds and all
Nice.
different.
So here's my field. Probably if I open this thing up, it's going to be huge. Yep. That's a TIFF. We should be able to do that. All right. Yeah, that's what happens when you open a lot of programs and a lot of files. Yep. My poor little laptop is never going to be the same. That's not what I wanted at all.
What kind of a laptop is that?
This is a Samsung. It's running Windows 10. It's an i7 processor, and it is, I think it only has 4 gigs of RAM, so it's,
Yeah.
but it's not something I'd want to use every day.
So obviously it's a 64-bit.
Right now, there's no choice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Photoshop, Lightroom is 64-bit, period. And I think Windows 10 is 64-bit.
Windows 10 is 64-bit.
Yeah.
And Mac is too.
Yeah. Okay, well, yes, we can add a bird. I'm not going to do it. So this is what we're ending up with at this moment here. I got one other that we'll go through and get back from a break. But essentially, that is where I wanted to get. So it was not too complicated, and we learned how to use the On1 masking tool. Hire Suite, and you can get just the layers portion for 60.
Yeah, they have a new camera raw.
Right. Not yet. Right. And I'm not sure what that's going to do for us, frankly. I haven't looked at their propaganda to see how that's better than anything else we're using. But I think, their strategy is to go after Lightroom.
Well, they want a replacement product, so
Right.
raw plus the effects.
So now we have to send it over as a TIFF or whatever from Lightroom, right?
Right.
To On1.
Right.
Or JPEG.
TIFF or JPEG, right. Yep. Yep. There would have been a control in there to bring it in as a TIFF, but it would not have had layers. That's the same thing. On1 and the Topaz suite now have decided, okay, we're going to lock you in. If you're going to use our stuff, we're not letting you take it anywhere else. Yep. And I know that because I specifically asked them, why can't I do this? They, well, we don't want you to.
So you can you save it within their suite, if you will, with the layer, so you can go back to that and do more work? Or no?
You cannot now. Again, that's part of what I asked them. Can we just have a kind of a snapshot so that I can save it there, go back and fix it later, and they don't support that. So to me, that's a killer. I'm never really done, right? So, all right, let's take a few minutes and. His actions cost around $7 a piece. So they're very affordable.
When you, terminology for me, an action as opposed to plug-in, as opposed to effect, it's all the same thing, just different?
A plug-in is typically an application, another program that you launch from within an application. So the On1 that we used, right? The On1 was a plug-in that we launched from within Lightroom.
Okay.
We could have launched it from within Photoshop too, and it can also run just as a standalone application. Other plugins are Topaz. The Topaz also runs separately. An action is a set of steps, a set of commands to Photoshop. So in other words, this guy here has figured out how to, let me pick one here that's really kind of interesting.
What's this guy's name that you referred to?
Seven Styles is what he goes by, but I'm not sure what his name is. He's an Australian guy. And he has, I think, at this point he's got like a couple hundred. But look at this, 2,000 sales at $6 a piece. So he's not out to make, big bucks on every one. 2,000, 1,600, so grunge for, this one's good, Storm. So $6 for this one. So what he's done is he's figured out this process whereby he takes an image, you put a mask over it. So here's the image, right? You put the mask over it, and then you run this program, this set of steps through Photoshop. And I would do one here, but on my big computer it takes like 8 to 10 minutes. On this thing it take an hour. But it goes through and it just does all these steps, and it's far more complicated than I even want to know.
Have you looked at bring up the action, how many
Oh,
lines
sure.
it is?
Yeah,
Is it like 100 or something, or?
more. Yeah,
Wow.
more. And what results is this whole stack of layers. And each of the layers you can control. So in every one of these, he gives you like 8 different color changes. And you can change the color just by clicking on the layer that you want to use. And you can adjust the size of so every one of these pieces, like this cloud here is separate from this cloud here, from that one. This lightning bolt is different from that one. And you can move them, change them, make them bigger or smaller. And every time you run it, it has some randomness to it, so it produces something different.
When you have it hundreds of layers, what kind of file sizes are you looking at?
The file size for this is not bad, but it does get big. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know, 500 megs or so. But it's not terrible.
Then you can flatten it. So
Right, once you get done with it, you can flatten it. I tend not to because, again, I don't know when I'm done with it. So, and it's just disk space. I mean,
So unflattened 500 megs, but flattened becomes reasonable.
Well, yeah, depending on what you flatten it to. If you flatten it out and then save it as a JPEG, then it's going to be something, very reasonable.
Do you have to flatten it to send it out export it as a reasonable size JPEG if you're not doing it? Can't you just export out if you have all the layers over?
Okay, so we talked about using the layers and then doing a roll-up, right, a stamp. So you do, the everything command, Control-Alt-Shift-E, right? You do it from the top layer and it rolls everything up and makes a stamp of whatever you have down here. So now you have a layer and you can save that out as a JPEG.
Say that
Right.
over again. Just
Okay, so you have whatever number of layers. You go to the very top layer and Control-Alt-Shift-E, everything, right? And it creates a stamp. Basically, it's what you see on the screen, right? So it creates a single layer of everything that's below it. Then you can save that out as a JPEG, or, if you're trying to reduce space, certainly JPEG. But then if you save that, what you've got there, you still have all of your layers that you can go back to, and you still have that stamp, right?
But can't you, if you do save as, it's like JPEG,
Right?
won't it collapse all those layers, assuming that we're all on,
Right.
and save as a JPEG and leave the other?
It certainly will, right?
Yeah.
Right. But you also want to save it as your PSD or TIFF before you did that, right? So you want to do a regular save or save as, and then a save as your export. So yeah, there's lots of ways to get to that point, but yes. So anyhow, so layer, plugins versus actions. I don't think I have any actions in here. Window, actions, let's see. Yeah, they have default actions in here, but no, I don't have any installed actions. Right.
What is an action? I've never used it.
An action is essentially a recording of keystrokes. All right. So if I were to create an action, I would turn on the action recorder and start clicking and moving and dragging and all those kind of things and making adjustments. When I'm done with that, I would click the save, and it would have captured. It's like history, right? So it would gather my history. You can then go back.
I mean, is action the same thing as a preset? Like
Kind of.
In Lightroom, you can do a preset.
Yeah, right, because in Lightroom, you can't record actions, okay? but you can record the result of what you did.
Yeah.
All right, so in that respect, the preset is the result of
A series.
things that you
A
did,
series of things.
but you can't go back and replay those, right? You can't actually watch the cursor. When you play an action, you actually watch it happen. It's going back through and it's doing all the steps. If you apply a preset, it just, there it is,
Yeah.
right?
All right. It's preset mostly Lightroom and actions mostly in Photoshop?
Actions, I think there are actions available in other applications too, but yes, Photoshop, not Lightroom, right?
I guess the other thing is that a preset, you can't adjust individual items of that preset once you've done it. I'm saying, you can apply it to an image, and it just says, I applied what you call preset 72.
Right, right. But then you can go back in and you can modify each one of the things that it changed.
Yes.
Okay, because all it's doing, in Lightroom, all that a preset is doing is going over to the edit panel over there and, and sliding the sliders back and forth. That's all it's doing. So you can open it up, you can go back in and re-slide them to your preference.
But an action is a series of instructions
Right.
that you can then apply to commonly to one after another photograph.
Right.
But still go back and change them.
Right, then you can actually go back in and modify the action and rerun it again with the change. So, yeah. But this guy with with this massive set of instructions here, I mean, it's worth trying, even if you just spend $7 and go in and get one of them and try it on one of your pictures. And it's kind of interesting. You may not may not decide not to use it. So, all right, I'm going to close this out. And I did this as a PSD for no particular reason.
Can I summarize what I think what you told me?
Sure.
Presets, it's a series of commands, but you can't go in sequentially and see how they do sequentially. You'll just see the commands over here, and you can individually adjust. An action, you could actually see the steps, and you could go in and individually adjust individual steps.
Right.
You can modify the command preset, but it's not a set of commands, it's a set of conditions.
Yeah, actually, let's go ahead and we can look at a preset because there are some built in here. Let's just bring this one up. What am I trying to say? Okay. All right, let's go and develop. Now, over on this side here, on the left side, here are presets. So we're in Lightroom, and let's just pick a, here's some Trey Ratcliffe presets. So HDR in Lightroom. So let's just see what happens with that. Now, if you look at these, you'll see that the preview window is giving me a preview, right, of what I'm going to apply. So I can pick one of these. Let's do HDR in Lightroom. So now what I've done is I've applied those steps that he defined. And if I look over on this side here, here's what I've got. I've got temperature change, tint change, exposure, contrast. He's modified the highlights and the whites, shadows, blacks. He basically brought the clarity up significantly. And
You can adjust those.
sure, I can just go in here and say, I don't want it like that. So I'll move it down here. Bring up the vibrance maybe. Okay, so saturation. Don't know what he did with the tone curve, if anything. Nope, nothing. Hue, saturation, and luminance, saturation, hue, luminance. So that's a preset, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. Anybody, you know what a macro is in computer terms? Macro. It's basically recording the things that I do. Mouse clicks, keystrokes. An action is a macro. Okay, maybe that clarifies it.
So would all of the adjustments be applied to the whole image then? In a preset?
In a preset, yes, yes. Yes, because what else could we do here? You know, and we could use an adjustment brush, right? And we could go over here and we could change this portion here and change the exposure of it and the contrast. Okay. Now, I could record that as a new preset. But what are the chances that the next image that I put that on is going to use that same area, right? So yes, generally speaking, presets are going to apply to the whole image, and then you go in and modify it as you like. Right?
Otherwise, your adjustment brush would take same part of the image, like a building, and do that thing to it.
Right. So let's just, what else have I got on here that might be worthwhile? Let's take this guy here. Okay, now I can apply the adjustments that I just did. Oh, can't find them. All right. How about this girl here? All right. Don't know what's going on with my folders. All right, let's just take this. And I can just hit the previous button, and that's going to apply all the adjustments that I did on the previous image that I was looking at. Nope. Yeah, there's my clarity. I guess it didn't use the adjustment brush. I think I clicked too many images in between. So, okay. Where was I going next? Topaz. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's just take this image here because I got it up. It seems to be working. All right, and I know that somebody nicked me on this before, so I'm just going to straighten it beforehand. Okay. So, all right, so there's my image. Now we're going to Topaz. What we're going to do here is we're going to apply a series of layers and effects, just like we would in Photoshop. So let's edit in, and I'm going to go down to Topaz Texture Effects. Now, this is a plug-in that I can run directly from here, but I'm going to do one other thing that I recommend, and that is to bring it into Photoshop first. Because if I do it in Photoshop, at least I have, at least I can go back to it. Plus, when I'm in Photoshop, I'm not going to take that image that was in Lightroom directly into Topaz. I'm going to make a layer, I'm going to make a copy of this layer, take that layer into Topaz. That way, I can be selective about where I apply the changes. So here's my layer. I'll do a Control J. Now I have two layers. Then I'll go to Filter, Topaz, Texture Effects.
The Topaz Effects is under Filters instead of under Editing, and that confuses me a little bit.
All the plugins
All plugins
are filters, right, right.
Because it's not software, it's a...
Well, it is actually a software, but you can run it separately, independently, standalone. But I like to group them. I think a lot of people prefer to work from Photoshop or from Lightroom. What I just did here, again, I created a second layer so that I have the ability to, apply this effect to the whole thing, all right? And then I can go back into Photoshop and get rid of portions of it, right? And let that, use a layer mask to pull it through, or a blending mode. So what we've got here is, you notice it came up immediately already modified. And these are presets. Just like in Lightroom, they are presets. They apply to the entire image, although as you can see with this one in particular, they've got some light leak preset in this image. They happen to hit the trees. Maybe that's strictly by mistake. This one here has a light leak sun rays. So, you know, you've got some pretty interesting effects that you can apply just by saying, oh yeah, I like that. And there are, I don't know, there's probably a couple hundred here. So let's try the ethereal.
Does this have, you know, the terrible color balance of the 1960s film that people seem to like?
Yeah, here's one.
Does it do one of those?
Here's one. So the good thing about this is that, okay, let's just say I like, what do I like? Oh, this one looks good. All right. So this is, you know, 1950s, you know, badly exposed, you know, Kodacolor. But this little thing right here, I can go in and I can click that, and I will be able to see all of the, just like in Lightroom, right? You go to the right panel and you can see all the things that made that preset. Same thing here, except that it's way more complex. All right. So what we've got here is a basic adjustment, similar to develop. We've got a texture, a light leak, a color overlay, added some dust and scratches, some edge exposure, and again, basic adjustments, and these are layers. So you can turn them off by clicking the eyeball, right? Turn that off. And you can expand it and see what they've done. So brightness is up a little bit, shadows, highlights up, clarity down, saturation.
Do you remember what the standalone price on this particular item is?
For texture, I think it was $60 or $70.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah, I think so. 60 or 70. Yeah. It's fun, you know. It's a good place to start. Again, my problem with this is that once you say, okay, there it is, there it is. You can't go back. You can't save a snapshot of it, even in Topaz.
But you can delete the layer, you can delete the layer and start all over.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, but didn't you duplicate it in there, didn't you?
I duplicated my layer in Photoshop, right. So,
So you go back to it, you can go back to the original.
right, but let's say that I made this change here and I just got rid of my dust and scratches, okay? And I saved this out and I put it back in Photoshop, okay? If I want to re-add those, I have to start from scratch. I have to make another duplicate layer of Photoshop, export it, find the same preset that I used, right? I can't just go back in and say, okay, well, maybe I like them, right? You can't do that. Right?
So if you start making little changes to it, unless you literally record them somewhere, you can never get back to it.
Yeah, you can't record it. There is.
Physically.
Oh, yeah, but manually, right.
You can't just do file save as, you can
Now, you see your options down here? Okay, cancel.
You can add adjustments, though. You can add your own adjustments.
Yeah, so we'll start over here, because what we did was we went to the adjustment, you know, the presets here, which, by the way, there's this nice little browsing thing here which you can look at and you can get completely boggled with, because I think there's probably a few hundred different presets. Maybe it's not going to work right. And you can, no, I just messed it up. Okay. Another nice thing, okay, so here's all the presets by style. This is an online community as well. So if I create a preset that I like and I save it, if I just click yes, okay, share, it automatically uploads it to Topaz. And so we can go into here and say, okay, I want only community. Oh, that's going to be terrible. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, okay. So here are some that you know, people have developed. Right? If I don't like any of them, I can just hit new, and now, right, there's my original image. Now I can start adding layers. So I'm going to add a, let's say a diffusion, strength, bring that up, make it softer, blur it a little bit. Okay, then I can add another one, which is maybe, let's see, posterize, that should be good. All right, bring that down. All right, nope, don't like that. Get rid of it. Yeah, now there's color overlay. What color? Blue. Opacity down. Another one. So you can add all kinds of things on here. Dust scratches. What kind of scratches do you want? And as I move here, you'll see that it immediately displays it in the image, so I really don't have to select it until I'm ready to go. So let's just pick this one here and make the size bigger.
Great scratches.
Yeah, yeah, nice. I mean, change the color of it.
Imagine adding scratches.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, right.
Trying to get rid of.
Yeah, you want lens scratches? Fine, here you go. All right, so here's the sun, different suns, size change, opacity.
So you make all these changes, then you're stuck.
Yeah, I've done it. I mean, I have to be really sure that this is what I want. Because once I hit OK, so let's just hit OK, and it's essentially saving this out, I think, as a JPEG.
After you save it though, is it still there so you can make more changes and try something else? Or is it all disappear?
Well, let's see. That's where I was when I clicked OK, and I thought, okay, well, I'll just, but unfortunately, yeah. Well, what's nice about this, aside from the, you're over and done, is that there are a lot of things like these, these flares are something that, I've actually bought plugins to do those. And so here they're included with this. Yeah, it's thinking too long. Let's see what happens when I go over to Photoshop.
You still have the tree open.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there it is. So it closed Topaz. Okay, when I said okay, it saved it out and it's closed. And it is a TIFF. Okay, so that's okay. And here's my layer, and here's my background. So if I wanted to...
So your original layer is gone?
No, my original layer is right here, this background layer. So there's my original image. This layer 1 is the Topaz modification. If I wanted to, let's say, bring back some of the contrast in the house, I would go down here, put a layer mask in, and paint with black with a brush.
On the same layer, is it?
Well, yeah, I'd want to...
I didn't think it'd do anything until you made another one.
He's masking it.
I'm just using a mask. Okay. So I've got the opacity at 71% here.
Cool.
Okay. So.
That makes it way more interesting.
Yeah, and we still have ability to go in and do other things, right? I mean, we still have the original background image here. Got this. I can still modify that if I wanted to. Can add another something or other. So if I wanted to, maybe, oh, that's kind of neat. So let's edit that in Photoshop. And we'll just bring it up to here. And let's try blend modes on this. I think it's probably going to work. Yeah, so I'm not sure which one would work better, but let's take that, turn the opacity down a bit. Then we can take this layer here, and I think it's Alt and drag it up to there. And now I've duplicated that layer, that mask that I had here, that masked out the house. Now I've masked that out of the cobwebs. Right? That's a Alt Option and drag the layer, the mask up.
So the fact that Topaz closed when you went back, is that their attempt to control and prevent people from
Yep.
going into another?
Yeah, I don't really get it. I mean, none of their, some of their tools, like the Light Leak tool, is theirs, but it's not like you can't get it somewhere else. So it's not entirely.
They got their own module now, but the last upgrade or upgrade before that, they've come up with their own module that stands, and you can just work out of their module. So
Right.
I don't know what they're trying to do.
Right. Yeah.
I've not worked out.
And well, they're competing. They want to, just like on one, they want to replace Lightroom, Photoshop. They want to be the package. But part of what Photoshop has going for it is that it's an industry standard. It's an open standard. The PSD is an open standard file. Anybody can write to it, and they're trying to be Apple for photo editing, and they're just not there. Yeah. So. Anything else, questions, comments before we close up? I think we've gone through a few things. I'm entirely happy with this image, but it's it's the process that was important, I think. All right. Well, good. One more week, and